Good afternoon. My name is Arul, and I hope you're able to see me and you're able to hear me. If you can see me and hear me, give me a yes. Just mention yes in the comment box. Good? If you can hear me, you can see me, just type yes in the comment box. Got? Okay, good. Now, thanks a lot for joining us today. And so today will be another day of our webinar series. And the topic that we're going to discuss today is the topic that I guess all of y'all are, busy with, which is the employment contract stamping matter. So today's webinar is titled Employment Contract Stamping Compliance. And for the next 1.5 hours or so, we will, we will unravel the mystery of this employment issue. We will go through the act, we'll go through the process, FAQs, and you can also ask questions that if you, to resolve your uncertainty. So with me today, I've got Luis Liaw. He will join me in a short while, as well as Rachel, and also to thank Sophia. So 1.5 hours, do not go anywhere. We'll cover the act, the FAQ, and the online process. So my name is Arul. I think many of you all do know me. I'm attached to HR Forum. And together with us today will be Luis Liaw. So Luis is also a member of the forum. He is a employment lawyer. He runs his own firm, which is called Luis Liaw Chambers. So he focuses on employment matters, on any civil court matters related to statutory compliance and whatnot. So that's Luis. You'll see him in a very short while. And Rachel, our head of Penang region, she's dialing in today. So she will walk through the online process. How do you submit and so on. And I would like to also thank Sophia, one of our contributor and an active member of the HR forum. So she also helped us to prepare the FAQ for today. This entire slides that you see, it's a combination effort of the four of us, helping you to understand this topic better. Now, before I pass on to Luis, I just want to touch this one, my usual mantra that I cover in all my webinars. It simply says that if you think compliance is expensive, try non-compliance. So today, our topic is very much compliance. The Stamp Act 1949 says that every employment contract must be stamped, right? That is a law. It's a requirement that every company must follow. Now, if we decide not to do it, what for we want to stamp it, is just a contract, who cares? It's only 100 ringgit. Now, later Luis will tell you, it is not just 100 ringgit, right? If you fail to stamp the employment contract, there is another penalty. So it's not just 100. So that I will leave it to Luis, to share with you. But this phrase, if you think compliance is expensive, try non-compliance. What does it tell us? Sometimes we think that if we don't do it, the government may not come after us, the labor department may not come after us, they may forget, there's so many companies, etc. But if we are caught, we are asking for trouble. The penalty can be much more severe than doing it. Why companies, or maybe why some companies prefer not to do it? They say, never mind, we worry about it later, because they think the law will not catch up with them. Let me give you one simple example of how this works. Let's say if it's 9 o'clock in the morning today. Right now, let's say if it's 9 o'clock in the morning, and we want to have a quick nasi lemak. We drive to the nearest kopitiam. We look at our clock, 9 o'clock. Is the majlis guy around here? Okay, there's no majlis guy. Maybe he's having his breakfast. Why not just park the car? Don't worry about some ticket. Let's just go have a quick meal and come. So you dash to the restaurant, you come back, and you realize there's a summon. So we were not compliant. If we were compliant, the cost is a mere 60 cents. But because we choose not to be compliant, now the fine, depending on the town council that you are residing in, it can be 10 ringgit, 20 ringgit, 30, 50, or whatever the amount is. So if we are compliant, the cost is a mere 60 cents. And to switch on your phone, open up the app, press a few buttons and activate your parking ticket, takes you about less than a minute, or maybe a minute. But because we chose not to be compliant, now we have to end up paying much more than 60 cents. And to pay the compound, even though you might be rich, they say, 20 ringgit, no problem. But to pay is going to take you much more than that 1-2 minutes that you have saved, right? So this is an example of compliance is always cheaper than non-compliance. So, these slides that you're seeing today will be shared in the forum. You can always go and download. It's almost about 60 pages. You can download these slides when you see it. And I always encourage all HR practitioners, when you are making any presentation to your management, try to run through this one slide before you start your topic. Make it as a mantra, make it as a prayer that everybody knows that, compliance, we cannot negotiate. If it's compliance, we got to do it, right? So with that, I would like to pass over to Luis, and he will run through the Stamping Act, the changes, the penalties, right? All of y'all, I believe we think that it's only 50 ringgit, 100 ringgit, but Luis is going to tell you the various other penalties if you don't comply or if you try to be funny. So with that, I'm going to pass over to Luis, and just give us a second. We're going to just do a bit of switching at our end here. Luis will be standing right here in the next few seconds.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me? Similarly, can you indicate if you can hear me? Just say yes in the comment section. Oh, good. Can hear. Test, test. Can you hear me? Okay. Okay, fantastic. Let us begin. Firstly, of course, thank you, Malaysia HR Forum, for inviting me to today's session, to do this sharing with all of you. I will still rush through the legal framework relating to the issue that we have today, relating to the stamp duty that you're facing. And after that, I will pass it back to the Malaysia HR Forum team on the practical steps, the practicalities of this issue. How do you actually submit a document for the stamping? And of course, how do you pay the stamp duty? Okay. But I've always, as a lawyer, I've always believed to this principle. Everything that the government does must be backed up by a law. Okay. It is not what LHDN says, what JTK says, it's what the law says. The LHDN authorities, they enforce the law. So we must always go back to where does this stamp duty comes from? Why do we need to pay it? There must be an origin from the law. Okay. Now, we are looking at today is a Malaysia Stamp Act. I have the fully printed document here with me. But a little bit of history. It's basically a law to impose taxes on instruments. Instruments meaning any written document. So it's a tax not on a transaction, but it's a tax on instruments. So every written document has to pay a tax. And the concept behind it is, of course, number one is the government, when they introduce the law, they want to raise funds, they want to raise taxes. That's number one. But another purpose of it is that by stamping on a written document, you give legality to the written document. You give legitimacy to the written document. You can tell people that this is a real document, it's not a forged document, because it has been submitted for stamping, it has been stamped, it's recognized by the government. That is the purpose of having the stamp duty, stamp tax. Of course, the stamp act has been around for a long time. It's since 1949. It's been before Malaysia's independence. The only thing that why we are so concerned today is because for a long time, employment contracts, although being a written document, although being an agreement, has not been stamped by most people. Most employers don't stamp it, and there's no issue for a long time. But since 2025, January 2025, when the government introduced the stamp duty audit framework, the government is strengthening the enforcement of this stamp duty compliance, is enforcing the stamp act strictly. And that is why you see LHDN going to companies, going to employers and check, have you been stamping to employment contracts? Because of this sudden enforcement, of course, it's part of the government's initiative to, again, raise forces, raise taxes and raise funds. Now employers are facing this issue of, should we be stamping our employment contracts? What happens if you have not been stamping? What can we do now? Okay. Like I say, in the Stamp Act, it states what are the documents that have to be, what are the agreements that have to be stamped. Now, under Section 4, it clearly says that all written agreements have to be stamped, and that you have to refer to another part of the Act that you need to look at is the first schedule of the Act. Okay, so under Section 4, it states that, or rather I should explain the definition of agreement. It states that agreement or memorandum of agreement made underhand only and not otherwise specially charged with any duty, whether the same is only evidence of a contract or obligatory of the parties from its being a written instrument. To simplify it, is basically any agreement that is signed by 2 parties. It's called underhand, so it's signed by both parties, a simple contract. It's not under seal, that you don't need to seal it. Any simple contract that is signed by both parties is an agreement. Now, if it's an agreement, it has to be stamped. But Schedule 1, the first schedule, says some agreements are exempted from this stamp duty. They don't have to be stamped. Okay. So if you look at the first schedule, it does say under B, for service of personal employment where the wages do not exceed 300 ringgit per month, and any agreement between the master and mariners of any vessel or boat for wages. So because of this exemption, it makes it even clearer that agreements of personal employment has to be stamped, unless it is for less than 300 ringgit per month. The salary is less than 300 ringgit per month. So as long as it's more than it, you have to stamp it. Okay. This exception actually makes it clearer that all employment agreement has to be stamped. Of course, at this juncture, you may ask, wow, 300 ringgit, that seems very low. Nowadays, who still have an employment agreement that the wages is less than 300 ringgit? Even the minimum wage is way higher than 300 ringgit. And that is basically because the Act has been here for a long time, since 1949. Now, of course, then there's been advocacy, there's been talks by people to say that then we should also update this amount. We should revise this amount, increasing it to perhaps 1,500, 1,700. Possibility that, of course, the government may also want to update the amount of stamping. Okay, because as it stands, the amount that you need to pay is 10 ringgit. So to stamp an employment contract, you need to pay 10 ringgit. We will talk about if you stamp it late, when should you stamp it, what is the consequence if you stamp it late. But if you stamp it in time, which is within 1 month, you only need to pay 10 ringgit. So when you talk about, I want to increase the amount 300 ringgit to 1,500 ringgit, only contracts above 1,500 ringgit has to be stamped. Yes, that may be true. But same time, government may also be thinking, oh, okay, then I also want to increase 10 ringgit, maybe too cheap. I want you all to pay for a higher amount. Okay. But as it stands, as the law says, is that any contract that is as long as more than 300 ringgit is an agreement that you must get it stamped. Okay. The amount to stamp, the stamp duty that is imposed is 10 ringgit. Now, what is the penalty if you stamp it late? Now, the law says that preferably any contract upon signing has to be stamped. But Section 47 allows you to stamp it within 1 month. But Section 47A says that if you stamp it after 1 month, there's a penalty. Okay. So last time there used to be 3 tiers, which is less than 3 months, then 3 to 6 months, and more than 6 months. But the Finance Act, another law, amended that section, which is Section 47A. And now there's only 2 tiers, which is stamp it within 1 month, no penalty. If you stamp it later than 1 month, but not later than 3 months, meaning within 3 months you stamp it, is 50 ringgit penalty or 10% of stamp duty, whichever is higher. And if you stamp it after 3 months, is 100 ringgit or 20% of the stamp duty, which is higher. In terms of what you don't understand what is the whichever is higher, to put it simply, it's either 50 ringgit or 10% of stamp duty. But the stamp duty for employment contract for this agreement is only 10 ringgit. So 50 ringgit is definitely higher than 10% of 10 ringgit. So whatever you end up paying is the 50 ringgit if you stamp it within 3 months, and 100 ringgit if you stamp it after 3 months. Okay. So we are very clear now that the law says that all agreements have to be stamped. Okay, unless it's for wages less than 300 ringgit, and all agreements have to be stamped within 1 month. Otherwise, you have to pay 50 ringgit if you stamp it within 3 months, or 100 ringgit if you stamp it beyond 3 months. Okay. So that is the structure of the law. That's the framework of the law. This is why we need to pay. Again, it has been ignored for a long time because simply nobody enforced it. LHDN don't enforce it. But because of the audit framework that is introduced this year, the strengthening or of the enforcement, now LHDN is going and checking and say, if you have not stamped it, you need to stamp it. Otherwise, we will impose the penalty. Okay. So of course, when this is started happening, when audits started happening, when employers are being questioned, being asked why they didn't stamp it, and being penalized. Even we've heard stories about, even up to more than 100,000 ringgit penalty. Then there's a lot of course, uproar. People are not happy. Then a lot of advocacy happened. They try to speak to LHDN, Employers Federation or Association, so to speak to LHDN and say, can we work this thing out? We don't deny that the law exists, but it's just that it's not been enforced for a long time. So can we discuss and see, can we work things out? Can we not add this burden to employers? Can we have an amnesty? And because of all these advocacy efforts, on the 6th of June, LHDN released this press statement saying, fine, this is how we will move forward from now on. But just before I go to the press statement, let me just specify the other penalties under the stamp act. Okay. These slides, like the HR Forum team says, they will be shared with you, so you can go back and review it. But like I say, always go back to the act. Make sure you can download this act from the internet. So just download it, have a look at it, go through some of the sections, make sure you're familiar with the consequences. But particularly, I want to highlight is section 63. Section 63. This is what Aru mentioned earlier. Section 63 says that if you, without lawful excuse, the critical term is lawful excuse. If you, without lawful excuse, fail to stamp an agreement within the period which is no penalty, for a case of employment agreement which is within 1 month, if you fail to stamp it, there's an additional penalty. There's a penalty for failure to stamp within the no penalty period. And the fine is up to 1,500 ringgit. Okay. So if you stamp late, yes, you stamp late, you need to pay the late stamping penalty. But the failure itself, your failure to stamp it within the correct time itself, is also an offense which you have to pay a penalty for. It's up to 1,500 ringgit. Of course, the law is that failure to stamp it within time. So it could be one agreement, 1,500 ringgit, two agreements, 3,000 ringgit, three agreements, 4,500 ringgit. So it's an offense separately. Okay. So now that the LHDN, as I mentioned, has come up with new ways at some relief, some exemptions, we take use of it, we take advantage of it. We don't delay the stamping anymore. Okay. Remember, you not only have to pay the late stamping penalty, the fact that you stamp it late itself is an offense, which you can be which you can be fined for up to 1,500 ringgit. Okay, please just bear this in mind. Interestingly, actually, under that section itself, it also say that if you have paid the late stamping penalty, let's say you paid 100 ringgit already, you can get discount from this fine. So maybe you pay 1,400 ringgit only. Okay, but just remember it's concurrent. Both also you may have to face if you stamp something late. Okay. Now, then on the 6th of June, as I mentioned, LHDN come out and say that, okay, we will, we have reviewed this thing. We understand the difficulties that employers are facing. This is how we will move forward. This is how we move forward. Technically, you have to look at the 3 Roman numbers, which is what the statement says. Basically, so I can't see. Yeah. Okay. The first one is under, A. Sorry, don't mind me. I just want to see the screen. A, it says that all contracts that has been finalized, that has been executed before the 1st of January 2025 is for employment contracts. Please bear in mind, it's for employment contracts, not other agreements. We're talking about employment contracts. That is finalized before 1st January 2025 is exempted from stamping. And the word they use is pengecualian duit stamp. Okay. And separately, the penalty is also remitted, meaning you don't need to stamp it. There's no stamp duty, it's exempted, and you also won't be penalized. Okay, the penalty is remitted. So the exemption power, again, like I said, everything must be based on law, comes from the power of the Minister of Finance under Section 81A of the Stamp Act. Okay, so again, I say it's not JTK say, it's not LHDN say, it is the law. So Minister of Finance, by his power under Section 81.8, uses his power to exempt for stamping. Contract has been finalized before the 1st of January 2025. That's the first thing is announced. Just bear in mind that under the law, it must be by way of a gazette. We have not seen the gazette yet, but I mean, it's a statement, press statement from LHDN itself, so it can be taken as, can say it's final. But we'll just wait for the gazette to officialize it. So that's the first thing the LHDN said. Second is for contracts between 1st January 2025, since 1st January 2025, okay, which is this year, all the contracts, if you have not stamped yet, you need to stamp it. So the stamping is not exempted, but the penalty is remitted. Meaning you stamp it later than 1 month, you stamp it because now it's already June. If you sign a contract in January, you stamp it now, it's already 6 months late, but you won't be penalized. Okay, the penalty is remitted. With the condition that you stamp it before the end of the year, before 31st December 2025. Okay, so this is a relief, this is an exception, this is a bit of a give and take by LHDN. Take advantage of this, go and get it stamped now. Okay, but if you have contracts finalized before 2025, you're fine, you don't have to do any action. Okay, but moving after this in 2026 onwards, the law goes back to usual. You have to stamp it within 1 month. If not, you have to pay penalty. And if you got caught, failure to stamp it, there's the potential of the Section 63 that we mentioned earlier. Okay, so this is the statement by LHDN 6 June. Of course, this comes to a relief of a lot of employers. Realize that at least there's a logical, reasonable way for us to move forward together. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So as I want to mention, is the power is under Section 81A, is for in terms of exempting certain documents to be have to be stamped, and in this, based on this statement, they are exempting employment contracts. And 47A is on remitting, cancelling the penalty. Now we have to wait for the Gazette to see the full details, but as it stands, it doesn't say that the exemption is retrospectively applied. You remember when I say that all contracts before 2025, you don't need to stamp it because it's exempted. The exemption starts, based on this statement, should be starting from 6 June, starting from today. It doesn't retrospectively go back 10 years and apply since 10 years. Because why I say that is, if it does, if the government or the Minister of Finance says that, then those stamp duty that you have paid, you can get a refund. Okay, but it's not. It's only starting from 6th of June, the day of the announcement. Okay, let's wait for the Gazette to see the clear details. Okay, so as it stands, if you somehow have already paid, there's no clear indication that you can get a refund at this moment. Okay. Clear so far? Any questions, please put in the comment section, then we will come to it later. Okay, hope everything is clear. If not, we can always come back to this later. Okay, so to simplify, Malaysia Aircraft Forum comes up with a table that makes it very clear, very easy to understand. Contract signed before 1st January 2025, exempted from stamp duty. No late stamping fee imposed. Do you need to stamp the contract? Technically, no. Okay. Contract signed from 1st until 31st of December this year. Okay, you must be stamped, including for resigned cases. I will explain why. But there's no penalty. Condition, you must stamp it within this year. If you stamp it next year, you still consider late already. Okay. Why I say it doesn't include those who are resigned cases for the employees have signed the agreement, but then he has then since resigned or left or even terminated him. It doesn't matter, because the Stamp Act governs the instruments. The stamp duty is imposed on instrument. The fact that there was an agreement that was signed, the day that it's signed, is executed, is started, it is subject to stamp duty. Doesn't matter later you terminated it or the employee resigned. Okay. Now, a contract signs from 1st January 2026 onwards, everything must be goes back to usual. You have to stamp it within 1 month. If not, you are subject to penalty. Okay. This is also another in a graphic that the Malaysian HR Forum comes about with, makes it also very clear. 2024 before, no need. 2025 onwards, yes. Okay. Now, then the next question you all may have is, okay, employment contract, what types of employment contract is subject to stamp duty that I need to get it stamped? The principle is quite simple. It's basically, it's an agreement, it's a contract. Okay. Now, if it's something, it's an instruction within an employment relationship, it's not a new agreement, it's not a new contract, so it's not subject to stamp duty. So what are the contracts of service? There's again, Malaysia Forum have this very useful table you can make reference with. So every contract of service, whether you call it an employment contract, you call it an offer letter, you call it employment agreement, service agreement, director's agreement, it is still an agreement. It's still signed underhand by two parties. Okay. Then stamp duty applies, you have to get it stamped. But let's not over stress about it. It's 10 ringgit. Just get it done. Okay, just get it done. 10 ringgit. So it doesn't matter if it's a part-time contract, it's a fixed-term contract. One thing is some people may ask is a transfer letter. transfer letter to a new entity. The principle of law is quite simple, is that employees are not allowed to transfer to a new entity because they work for this company, they are an employee of this company. You cannot just transfer him unilaterally to another company, to another entity. So when you want to transition from this company to another company, technically you need a new agreement with the new company. So when it's a new employment, it's a new agreement, it's an agreement. So you have to get it stamped. Okay. Contract renewal is a new contract. And also, of course, including foreign workers. Foreign workers, if you have contracts with a foreign worker, you have to get the agreement signed. Okay. What is excluded? Promotion bonus letter, like I say, this not a new agreement, it's an instruction, it's an internal instruction. An increment letter, letter of transfer within the same entity is an instruction, it's a common letter. So there's no new employment, there's no new agreement. So it's not a new contract, there's no need for stamping of these letters. Okay, clear? Employment related bond, also an agreement. Contract for service, your contract with your freelancer, your contract with your contractor, these are still contracts, you still have to get them stamped. Now, internship, there's some associations talking about, they have spoken to LHDN. LHDN is reviewing whether there's a need for internship agreements to be stamped. But to me, if it's still, this, of course, we're subject to LHDN's announcement, and so you can seek clarification of LHDN. But to me, the law, if you just follow the black letter of the law, if it's an agreement, even though it's an internship, it's an agreement, then you have to get it stamped. Of course, there are other ways that you can structure an internship without an agreement, oral contracts and things like that. But if there's a written document, there's an agreement, it is subject to stamp duty. The stamp duty is quite simple. It's an instrument, you have to stamp. It doesn't really concern what is the content or what is the nature of it. Okay? Okay, so that is about the legal framework. I just, before we go to the FAQ, I think it's very important that you'll go through the FAQ together with me and Arul, because I know you have other concerns, you face other situations, you may want the answers. But I just want to conclude one thing on the legal framework. There's also the implications of contracts that are not stamped cannot be used in court, inadmissible. Okay, in fact, that is the one big part of the Stamp Act, to give legitimacy, to give legality to the document. So it said the law actually provides in the Stamp Act says that if an agreement is not stamped, you cannot use it in court. Okay. But I will tell you, being a lawyer that goes to court, this agreement cannot be admissible as an evidence in court. Rarely happens. Okay. The Bar Council actually have a rule to say that lawyers should not object to an agreement being used in court as evidence just because it is not stamped. Okay. And especially employment agreements, normally when I use these agreements the most, in the JTK or in the industrial court. Both JTK and the industrial court, they are supposed to look at the substance of the dispute. They're not supposed to be bothered by technicalities. So an agreement being said cannot be used as evidence because it's not stamped, when rarely or hardly hold water in these two venues. So don't need to worry about an agreement just because it's not stamped, you cannot use it in court. Most of the time it will be accepted. And the agreement is still a valid agreement. It is still binding on both parties. You still can enforce the agreement. Okay. Just that the stamp gives it extra legitimacy. But now we're talking about, you got agreement, you have to pay tax. That's as simple as the purpose of a stamp act. Okay. That's all I have to say. If there's any questions, please fill in the comments and we will answer to that shortly. Now I will pass it back to Arul for the FAQ.
I just run through this. Okay, so I hope you can hear me. Now, I just want to run through, because I know I was looking at your comments just now, non-stop. Pity your keyboard, let your keyboard rest, listen, because most of the questions that you ask, we are going to answer in this, in the FAQ part as well. But nevertheless, please listen, because I see most of you are more excited to know one or two things. But please listen and take note of it. So I'm going to just recap what Luis has mentioned. It is also part of the question that you have asked, so that, during the FAQ, we can focus on other more important questions. So let me just share with you those very common questions that you have, right? So let me repeat. So I hope all of you all, stop typing in the keyboard, right? Stop typing. I'm not going to look at the phone. So stop typing in the keyboard. Listen to me. Listen, because many practitioners out there tak mau dengar, right? Listen, and so that we can answer all these questions, those basic questions once and for all. So please listen. Now, the recent circular by LHDN says what? Any contract that you have signed with the employee last year and onwards, that means before 1st January 2025, that means not this year. If you signed the contract last year, 2024, 2023, 2022, those contract, if you have signed and the employee have signed, those contract need not be stamped, right? So number one, if the contract was signed. Now, when we say the contract is signed, it's not just the company, but also the employee, right? So the company and employee signed the contract last year, you don't need to get it stamped, right? That's the first important thing. So let's say now you signed the contract last year, the employee signed the contract last year, but they resign in 2025. You also do not need to get the contract stamped because that is a last year's contract, not this year, right? That's number one. If the employee and you sign the contract in 2025, right? Sign the contract 2025. Let's say the contract was signed in January and the employee resigned in March. So the employee resigned, gone. Do you need to stamp the contract? The answer is yes. Why? Because the contract is executed in 2025, which is the second box. So if the contract was signed by the employee last year and he resigned now, or he's still active, right? Let me just run through this, right? If you look at the first box, the first bar on top, the contract is signed before 2025. That means signed last year. And now he's still here. He's still working. You do not need to sign it. If the contract was signed by the employee last year and he or she resigned this year, you do not need to sign. That's why you see a cross. No need. XX, no need. But if the contract is signed this year by the employee and the employee is still here, you have to stamp it. If the employee has resigned, employee signed January 2025, resign also in January or resign February 2025, you must get it stamped. Why? Because the contract is executed this year. So many of your questions are like this, right? Employee resign. If the contract is this year, resign this year, you must get it stamped, right? So you must understand this. As long as the contract was executed this year, whether the employee is still around or he has left, you must get it stamped, right? So I hope this can put, this question of last year contract, resign, etc., put it to rest. So this table, you should be able to understand, right? So you must focus. The problem with many of y'all is, you are half listening, half typing. I don't know what the other half you're doing. So listen, right? If you listen carefully, you will get answer. So I repeat again, if the contract is signed by the employee last year and he or she is still around, still working, or already resigned, it doesn't matter. Because why? That contract is last year, you don't need to stamp. But if the contract is signed this year by the employee and he or she is still around or maybe already resigned, you do not need to, you need to get it stamped. Why? Because the contract is 2025 contract. You must do it, right? So that's one. Then there was also a lot of questions here. Now, as long as you call it a letter of offer, letter of employment, contract of employment, employment contract, letter of engagement, whatever name you call it, right? Sometimes HR is creative for unnecessary reason. Use simple terms. Employment contract, done. Letter of appointment, letter of employment, letter of offer, contract of employment, whatever. Just use simple terms, right? You complicate yourself. No matter what you call it, right? Letter offer, letter employment, letter, etc. Whether it's full-time, whether it's part-time, right? Whether it's a contract, you must get it stamped. If the employee is a foreigner, also you got to get it stamped. If you are going, let's say if I hire somebody, the first contract is 3 months. And after 3 months, I decide to, okay, the guy is good. right? Can we give another 3 months contract? That is considered a new contract. You got to get it stamped. So if the person is on a contract, you want to renew the contract, you want to extend the contract, whatever label you call it, it is still a new contract, you got to get it stamped, right? When you transfer an employee, so for example, today, I am hired under company A, Sdn Bhd. And for some reason, there's some changes in the organization. The company says, I'm going to transfer you to company B, Sdn Bhd. That is considered a new employment. You must get it stamped. Got it? So all this, you got to get it stamped. But as what Luis mentioned, if there's a change in certain work instructions, certain internal restructuring, you're still in the same company. The company transfer you from HR department to, let's say, finance department. You do not need. The company promote you from an exec to a manager. You do not need. The company gives you a bonus or an increment. You do not need. Right? As I said, you are now transferred from company A to another department in the same company. You do not need. But if the company is going to move you to another legal entity, another Sdn Bhd, you need to stamp the contract, right? So I hope this puts an end to whether I need to do this. Training bond, if you're going to send somebody for training and you're going to bond him for a certain amount of money, you got to get it stamped, right? Remember, there's a value there. Your training bond has a value. Or if you want to hire a contractor, a freelancer, a part-timer, whatever name you call it, right? We always, a company always try to avoid working relationship, try to avoid employee-employer. So they come up with some, creative term. Service contract, freelance contract, whatever contract you call it, it has got to be stamped. But for internship, what we have heard based on FMM's, meeting with LHDN, LHDN is they are reviewing whether internship they should stamp. So as of now, we don't have an answer yet. There is no further information from LHDN. So what I would advise you, you may want to wait. But if, let's say, by end of this year, no circular, no updates, please get it stamped. Okay? Now, LHDN in the circular that Luis mentioned just now, that yellow page, if you've seen it, you are given until end of the year to get all your current contracts stamped, right? So those contracts in January, February, March, you forgot to do it, right? I know you're not aware. That's okay. January contract, February, March, April, May contract. Only June, we all got excited. May, June, we got excited. So all the contract that has already passed the 30 days, you have until 31st December to stamp the contract and to apply for the waiver of the penalty. That means you can apply to tell LHDN, to waive the penalty. But if you have somebody who joined today or last week or next week, please stamp the contract, within 30 days, right? The penalty is for the previous contract in 2025 that you have already forgotten. 30 days, we did not do it. Those contract, yes, you apply for waiver, right? Apply for the penalty waiver. But any employee who's joining you now, last week, next month, July, August, September, please stamp your contract within 30 days, right? So I hope I've answered many of this, right? Many of this. So training bond, right? If you're going to bond the employee, some people like to call it training bond, employment bond, whatever bond. As long as it's a bond, there's a value to it, you got to get it stamped, right? So if you now, for example, nobody asked this, right? Nobody asked this. Why? Because either you didn't pay attention or you're not aware. If I'm going to appoint somebody to be a OSHA C coordinator, right? Now OSHA Act requires you to have an OSHA C coordinator. Data protection, PDPA, right? PDPA Act requires companies, if you're having certain volume of data, you must appoint a DPO, data protection officer. Now, I'm going to give a letter to one of my colleagues saying that, okay, you are now the company's appointed OSHA C coordinator. Do you need to get it stamped? Answer is no, right? So remember, when the contract has a very important meaning, right? You're going to extend the contract, you're going to renew the contract. Those are very important. You got to get it stamped. So I hope, this can be put to rest, right? Now, I always tell this to HR practitioners. all of y'all are diploma holders, degree holders, some of y'all could be master's degree holder. We need to use our intelligence to really understand, use your common logical sense. But when we behave like SPM student, we start asking, this one can, that one can. Why do I need to hire all of y'all? 5,000 ringgit salary, 8,000 ringgit salary, 10,000, 15,000, but behave like SPM student. Use your common sense. Think. Use your logical, rational sense. I went through the same learning stage, right? When I have an issue, I will read the act, understand what is it, and then I'll say, oh, now I understand. So before you ask yourself first, what does this control, what is the purpose of the Stamping Act? If you know the purpose of Stamping Act, most of this question can be answered. So I hope all of you all listening, maybe not all, those listening today, if you always find the easy way out, ask. Why should I pay you 5,000 ringgit when I can just hire a fresh SPM leaver, train them what to do, pay them 1,700, right? So you must take the effort to really understand the law and learn and ask critical questions, not asking baby questions, right? Okay, so these slides that you see now will be shared in the forum, right? We're going to share this in the forum after the call is over, so you can always download from the forum. And this live recording will be available in Facebook, for the next 30 days. Facebook will remove this recording after 30 days. So for the next 30 days, this recording will be in Facebook. You can watch anytime you want. Okay, so let me move on. My pointer is not working. Okay, let me move on. Okay, give me a second. Okay, yeah. Okay, so I want to just go through some of other FAQs that you all have. So all the questions you asked, majority of them are covered. If we did not cover, we will try to cover at the end of this session when we go through your live questions. So bulk employment contract, if your company has got 500 staffs, 300 staffs, 30 staffs, can you submit all one go? We have checked, answer is no, right? The system do not have, the option to do bulk upload. You have no choice but to do one by one by one. So that is unfortunate. All I can say, please enjoy the process, right? Bulk upload is not applicable. And is there a lead time for your rayuan? If you're going to appeal for penalty, right? If you're going to appeal for penalty to process after submission, there is no defined lead time for the penalty waiver process after you submit. But please check your status. And the advice that we can tell you based on what we have been hearing and seeing, please do things promptly to minimize these issues, right? Don't delay. So once you have submitted, there's a penalty, the system says that, oh, there's a penalty, quickly submit your appeal and check whether the appeal is approved, right? Sometimes, it may take a little bit longer, but we also know that many of you all, based on what you have shared and discussed, some of you all are lucky you get approval quite fast, some within a day, 2, 3, right? I'm sure the decision will be given to you, but do allow some time. Now, what solution is available if we already have paid the stamp duty and penalty before a rayuan? That means before you appeal, you've already paid the penalty, right? Once you have made payment, it means that you have agreed to the same penalty. You have already agreed to the duty and the penalty imposed. We believe you can't appeal. You can, speak to labor, but speak to LHDN, but what we know and what we have experienced, you can't appeal because you've already agreed. If you don't agree, let's say now you have paid. If you don't agree, why do you pay? Right? So if you agree, then you pay. If you don't agree, you appeal for waiver. So an LHDN do allow, you to apply for waiver. Whether it's approved or not, that's up to them. And so this is a very favorite question, because in employment, when we talk about employment contract or some of these documents, there's always 2 copies, one for you, one for the employee. So do I need to stamp both copies? Right? Do I need to stamp both copies? It's a very favorite question. Now, so for employment contract, only employer need to stamp, right? That means the main copy, the master copy that you keep in your P file, your personal file, you got to stamp it, right? So the main copy or the principal copy is sufficient. But if you want to stamp the secondary copy, that's really up to you, right? But again, whatever that we are sharing today, these are all from our FAQs, questions that raised to LHDN. But end of the day, it is always important to seek guidance if you're not clear, right? If you're in doubt, seek guidance. Now, is there a stamp from the employees? So let's say now, what do you call this? You only stamp one contract, which is the employee's contract. Is it sufficient? Yes, it is sufficient. But if you want to also have the secondary contract stamped, that is up to you. That is optional. How does the company handle the stamping payments to LHDN? Does the account owner make the payment first and then claim from the company, or is there a direct payment method through finance or payroll? So all payments to LHDN can be done via FPX, right? If you do not know what is FPX, please get some help from your finance department. What is the effective date to use for stamping? Now remember this, sometimes companies prepare the contract 1 week ago, or maybe some time ago, maybe 1 week, 2 weeks ago, and the employee only signed after 2 weeks. The effective date, the 30 days starts from the day the employee signed the contract, not when you prepare the contract. Because HR will prepare the contract. Let's say, for example, today I interview somebody and I like this particular employee so much, the candidate, he's good, right? The boss says, okay, go ahead and hire. So we prepare the contract, the boss sign tomorrow, right? If today is 18, the boss sign 19. Then you're going to email the candidate. Okay, dear so-and-so, we are happy to have you on board. Congratulations, this is your contract. Please go through, read, sign, and send back to us. Now, he may sign the contract on 25th of June. The 30 days starts from 25th of June, not the day you prepare the contract, right? So I hope you're clear on this. So similarly, right, now similarly, this is a very important question. Let's say you prepared a contract on 26th of December last year, right? You interviewed somebody last year, at the end of last year, 26th December, you interviewed, and the guy is good. You prepared the contract on 26th. Your boss signed on 26th. But when you send to the employee, because there's some New Year celebration, he was away, etc., he signed the contract on 2nd January. Do you need to get it stamped? Yes or no? I want to see, maybe some of you, one or two can answer. Yes or no? The company signed the contract 26th of December 2024. The employee signed the contract on 2nd January 2025. Do you need to get the contract stamped? Yes or no? Okay, Japing, you're correct. Because why? The contract is executed when the employee signed, and the employee signed in 2025. Therefore, you must get it stamped. So I hope you're clear on that. Okay, yes. Shanti, you're also correct. And so this is another very creative question. Like I say, HR sometimes very creative. Now, in industries like F&B, right, the food and beverage industry, retail industry, hotel industry, manufacturing industry, and some of the other service sector, the blue-collar employees, the turnover, when you hire this operator and, the F&B staff, etc., the hotel staff, the banquet staff, the cleaners, etc., the turnover in the first 1 month or the first 2 months is very heavy. Sometimes you interview 100, you offer 50, and you tell them that, okay, on 1st of July, masuk kerja, and 1st of July, instead of 50, only 5 turn up, right? Because high turnover. And sometimes maybe all the 50 comes, but after 1 day, 3 cabut, next week, 10 cabut, another week, 20 cabut. So how? So all the stamping money, you may say, alamak, wasted. So how do I do? What can I manage? So there was one HR person out there, was so creative. So this person says that in the employment contract, right, EA, right, you can see on the box on the right, the first box on the right, Section 10 of Employment Contract, Employment Act says this, a contract can be in oral or writing. That means oral means secara lisan. Contract boleh secara lisan atau bertulis. But a verbal contract, right, a verbal contract, according to Employment Act, can only be used for 30 days, right? If you're going to engage somebody for more than 30 days, it has got to be a written contract. So oral contract, according to Section 10 of Employment Act, it's only 30 days. But if it's going to be more longer than 30 days, it has got to be returned. So this creative person says that, why not I do this? I give them an oral contract first. So let's say I've got a staff, Fadzul. I say, Fadzul, masuk kerja 1st Jun, gaji 1,008, OT kita bayar macam EA, EPF, and semua bayar macam EA, all correct, right? Tapi I will only give you a contract on 1st of August, right? Now, as far as Employment Act is concerned, you are not wrong because it allows you. What about LHDN? So what you do on 1st of August, you issue a contract, 1st August, and you said, okay, this is your contract, your seniority, that means your years of service starts on 1st of June, right? I would encourage you to seek guidance from LHDN, even though EA says this is possible, but see whether LHDN says can, right? There may be a way out, but good to get further guidance or clarification. Okay, can employers charge the stamp duty back to the employee? So again, some creative companies out there, why not we ask the employee to pay? Now, again, my question to all of y'all is this, and I'm going to be very, I'm going to be a bit more, how to say it, a bit more, nasty lah, put it that way. Now, if HR is trying to tell the bosses, boss, I can save the stamp money, I'm going to do this to save the 10 ringgit. Are you saving the world by saving 10 ringgit? Focus on the bigger picture, please. I can tell you the bosses, today they say, yeah, hey, good. You know what, Shanti managed to save my stamping. But after tomorrow, he forgets what he has said. Focus on the bigger picture. When you do this, right, you are creating more complexity to your job. You're going to tell the employee, okay, should I sign a company sign, you sign. Okay, now can you go and stamp it? Don't know whether he's going to do it, when he's going to do it, your work is going to be hanging, right? Focus on the bigger picture, please. But let's go back to what the Stamp Act says. Under Section 33, the third Schedule 1 of the Stamp Act, it says that the person, the individual who first execute. So who execute? The first to execute. Now, in a contract, there are two parties, the company and the employee. The one who prepared the contract is the one who is called the first executor. So under Section 33, it says that the person who first execute the contract, it is your responsibility to get the contract stamped, right? Now, I can tell you, see, I'm not a legal expert like Luis, but I remember I said this, common sense, right? Many of this is common sense. Now, why say common sense? Let's say there's two person, not employment contract, any contract, two person, they say, okay, you know what, let's do some business together. Okay, let's sign the contract. Then there's a dispute. I will say that, no, you're supposed to do. He will say, you're supposed to do. So the law now clearly says that the person who first execute, the person who prepared the contract, the responsibility is yours. So tomorrow when there's a dispute in court, it's easy for the law to say, you know what, the answer is there. The law says, who prepared the contract, that is your responsibility. Right? Common sense. So what Section 33 says, the person who first prepared the contract, it is your responsibility. And HR, let me tell you this, do not try to go and, do cheap savings for company. You save 10 cents, it's cheap savings. You want to save money for the company, you please save thousands of ringgits. This 10 ringgit all is kindergarten game. Save thousands of ringgit. You all do not know this. You keep extending probation. Your probationer, you keep extending. You're wasting 1 month's salary, 2 months' salary, 3 months' salary. What is that? The savings of your stamp is not even enough to cover your contract extension. If you have joined the masterclass that I do, I always tell HR this. When you extend the contract, you are burning companies' money. You are wasting companies' money. But now here, HR like a hero, want to save 10 ringgit, right? Focus on the bigger picture, please. And so what if the employee signed the contract, but later he don't report? That means he signed, tapi tak masuk kerja. So you sign the contract stamped, right? The document is still valid. You still got to pay the stamp duty here because the Act says that as long as the contract has been signed by both parties, within 30 days, you must stamp the contract, right? Now, so what LHDN says, IRB is LHDN in English. What LHDN says is that the execution triggers duty, not performance of the contract. So for the law, it's very simple. As long as the contract is triggered, okay, you sign, I sign, the contract becomes legally binding. You must stamp it. Whether he come to work or not, that's a different story. That has nothing to do with LHDN, nothing to do with the act. But the moment the contract is executed, you have to stamp it. So no refund of stamp duty, right? There's no refund just because the employee did not show up. Okay, and the other question is, in what circumstances will the refund be processed by LHDN? Now, the answer is in Section 58 of Stamp Act. Now, that is why many of you must develop the habit, which I think many HR practitioners, I've seen so many, they don't have the habit because the mindset they have, SPM student mindset. Ask, call LHDN, call JTK, call HR forum, call your neighbor. You know, when you read the act, you know what we have gone through, myself, Luis, and so on, we also read the act. Highlight, printed, bookmark, you know, the answers are there, but we don't have the habit of researching. But when we want to go for holidays in Thailand, Japan, Korea, which hotel, which amusement park, how much here, which air flight, when to pay, all that we are terror, pandai. But when it comes to something so important like this, we'll prefer to ask. That habit has got to change, right? So otherwise, why should I pay you 10,000 ringgit, 5,000 ringgit if we behave like SPM student? All the answers are there. So now, in Section 50 of the STEM Act, sorry lah, sometimes I got to be tough. I'm a tough coach, right? You want to be good, you must train under a tough coach, right? So please come to the masterclass. Now, Section 50 of the STEM Act says this, refunds are only possible, are only permitted under certain strict circumstances. For example, the instrument has not been signed or executed, right? Or you have paid the stamp duty in error. That means there's an error you've made, or you paid more than what you're supposed to pay. You can ask for refund. Or when the instrument is spoiled or unused and returned within a specified period. So for these three, you can ask for refund. Whether your refund will be approved, that's something that, for LHDN to, decide. Now, can an agent admin, because sometimes, your company may have so many contracts to sign. If you ask one person, finish lah, right? That one person is going to be busy for the next many days or many weeks, right? So can an agent admin manage more than one company or entity? Answer is yes. As long as the person is authorized by the company and they have registered account in the stamps portal, right? They can do it. So I know this is nothing new. Some companies are already having multiple person to do it for them. How many times can a company download or print the official stamp? Once you have paid, right, the system will send you the acknowledgement, right? Remember this, and this is what you have made a mistake, and I can tell you it's going to be very costly as well, because your finance is going to ask you for evidence. Where's the receipt? So remember this, you can only do it once, right? Please do not click cancel button during the printing or downloading process. Let the process complete one time. Once you miss it, that's it, right? Then you kena garu kepala macam mana. Okay, what about now digital signed copies? Nowadays a lot of companies, what they do? They do, technology, right? We don't use hard copy anymore. We only use digital copy. You prepare digitally, you send to your prospective candidate that you're going to hire, you send them digital. Even a digital contract can be stamped, right? As long as both parties have signed it, you can stamp it. But let me also tell you this, and there's about 1,900 people listening in today. Now, I'm sure this could be something new to many of you all. Employment Act requires hard copy of your contract, not soft copy, right? Your pay slip, hard copy. Do you all know that? If you do not know, 50,000 ringgit maximum fine, right? If you are using soft copy employment contract, soft copy pay slip, you can apply for exemption using Borang L, right? If not, it is an offense. So yes, for stamping purposes, digital contracts, that means your soft copy, you do it all electronically, it's fine. But remember, under Employment Act, all this has got to be hard copy. And if you have subsidiaries, That means your HQ is in Kuala Lumpur, you've got employee in Johor, in Penang. Your contract, if the employee is in Penang, Penang branch or Johor branch, the contract must be kept in Johor or Penang branch. Employment Regulations 1957 say so. If you want to keep the contracts in HQ, you must apply for exemption. If you fail to do so, maximum fine 50,000 ringgit. So remember this, right? Some of you all may not know this, but employment contract payslip must be in hard copy and kept where the employee is working, not in the HQ. So just for some additional info for those of you all, if you're new. Okay, right. Yeah, thanks Siti Nabila. Even though I say SPM, I'm not trying to belittle you guys, but I'm challenging you to be much more smarter, do your own research, study the act, follow discussions, and use God-given knowledge to understand the logic. And I can tell you, life becomes much more easier. You don't even need to join webinars and waste your 1.5 hours. Okay, so I'm done with the FAQ. I think I've answered quite a bit of questions, but we will pick up more questions after this process. So I'm going to pass to my colleague, Rachel. Rachel is our HR Forum Regional Manager in Penang. So she's going to do it online. So she's not here with us in PJ. So just give us a minute. She will run through the entire stamping process. This is quite lengthy. Again, pay attention, right? Pay attention, follow, focus. And if you have any questions, you can ask us at the FAQ part after Rachel has done her presentation. So just give us a few minutes, a few seconds for us to switch, and we'll be back.
Yeah. Yes. I'm so sorry. I forgot to unmute. Okay. But I'll start all over again. The online stamping process. So this is the overview of stamping process. If you get the contract stamped within 30 days, then it's account registration, submission, and straight away for payment. Okay. And then you will get sigil stamp generated. Those contract that has passed the 30 days, you have to go one more step, which you have to appeal first prior to payment. Okay. And then for your stamping process document checklist. So what do you require to register an account with LHDN? So you need the company registration form, which is the SSM, letter of authorization, employment contract in PDF copy, and then agent admin identification, which is your IC card, front and back, and letter of appeal. Part 1, account registration. For account registrations, you have to go to stampshasil.gov.my. So what you need to do is you have to click there, step 2, Daftar ID. Then next step is you have to select pengguna syarikat and not individual because you're acting on behalf of your company. So you need to click pengguna syarikat. And then next, then these are the documents that is required. It's already written over here. So you require the salinan IC and then the SSM as well as the surat kuasa, which is the authorization letter from your company. Next, then you go on to process pendaftaran ID pengguna. So you have to select syarikat. Okay, this. Then next, you have to fill up all the particulars of the company, including the name of the company, the address, and then the state and postcode and so on. And then you go next step, which is forward. Hello? Okay, my apologies. I will start all over again because I think I go too fast and some of you can't follow. Okay. Overview of stamping process. So for the stamping process, if you stamp the contract within 30 days, right? First step is you have to get your account registration done, submission, and then payment. Okay, then you will get the sigil stamp generated. If the contract has passed 30 days, what you need to do is after submission, step 2, you need to go to step 3, appeal. You need to submit an appeal first before you make payment, because once you have make payment, LHDN will not refund. So you make sure that you have the appeal first, then only you make the payment. Okay. And then your stamping process, these are the document checklist. So you have the company registration form, which is the SSM. You need to prepare this, and then the letter of authorization, your employment contract, agent admin identification card, means it's your IC, front and back, and letter of appeal. Can you all follow so far? Okay. Next is the, okay, part 1, the account registration. Okay. So to register an account, you have to go to stampshasil.gov.my. Okay. And then you click on Daftar ID. That is the first step for registration. Okay. Then next, you have to select Pengguna Syarikat, because you're doing this on behalf of the company. So you're representing the company. So you select Pengguna Syarikat. Okay. Next step. So under Pengguna Syarikat, you see the LHDN already laid down what are the documents that is required. First thing, of course, is your SSM, Salinan SSM, okay? And then Salinan IC, which is a front and back of your IC, as well as authorization letter, Surat Kuasa Wakil Majikan. Okay, then next. For example, when you go to Pengguna, you have to daftar, you have to select a syarikat, okay, syarikat or agency lain. Then you go to the next step, which is you have to follow through, okay? So part 1 is where you register the ID Pengguna and your name of your company. So your name of your company, the address of the company, and so on. Okay, when you finish this process, after you have after you have submit, like you have filled up the company particulars, then next is you have to put up your agent's particulars. So part 2 is for agent. So name of yourself, and then address, and so on. All these particulars you have to, and make sure that the email that you registered is an active email, because whatever correspondence, right, a correct and active email address is important for LHDN to send your application status, whether approved or disapproved. Incorrect information provided during ID registration will affect the assessment notice and stamp certificate issued. So you make sure that the email address that you entered is an active email address. Can you follow so far? Okay, next is the ready for next steps. So here are the 3 main documents you will need, which is the SSM, and then your agent admin identification card, which is your IC, and letter of authorization. These are the 3 documents that you're required. Then, so when you go to lampiran, right, you see the part here. So you have to choose file, company SSM. So you have to upload muat night. And each time you muat night, there is a 6-digit code which you required for verification. Okay. And then the same steps for all the 3 steps, like for agent, admin, IC, also you need to verify the 6-digit code, as well as your letter of authorization. All these documents has to be uploaded. Once you have uploaded these 3 documents, which is the SSM, agent, admin, IC, and letter of authorization, then you proceed to the next step. Okay. So seterusnya, so for example, for here, it stamps confirmation by email. You have to get about within 1 to 3 business days. It's depending on LHDN application volume. If the application is a lot, they might take more than 3 business days. But usually LHDN will take around 1 to 3 business days to reply, right? So after that, you click seterusnya. Okay, so your part 1 is complete. Well done. Now you have to move on to the next one. So if you don't receive it, let's say, for example, the adjudicacy number and your application, right? You need to submit an inquiry via the customer feedback form at maklumbalaspelangan.hasil.gov.my. Right? This is for pertanyaan, duty stamp providing the registered company representative IC number. Unreceived notifications may be due to an incorrect email address. So you need to get back to LHDN on that. You need to call them up and then revert to them that you have not received all the information like the login ID and also your password for you to proceed to the next step. Okay. Next is part 2, the submission part. So ready for part 2, submission. Okay, here the 1 main document you will need, which is the employment contract. You only need the employment contract. Next. Okay. When you have moved to this page, right, you have already received email from LHDN, so of your agent ID and also your temporary password. So you use that temporary password and agent ID to log in to the Stamp Hasil website. And then at Stamp Hasil here, you see at the top, next. Okay, for here you see, you're encouraged to update the password after receiving the temporary password. So you have to change your own tukar kata laluan. Next. So next is to change to FIMA. So you have to select FIMA agency syarikat berdaftar. Okay. Next, so you have to select under penyertaman, and then you maklumat am, you have to select the last one, penyertaman am, and then you have to then fill up the pejabat stamp. So if the stamp is based in Selangor, if you are based in Selangor, then you select Selangor's office. If you're in KL, then you select the KL office. If you're in Penang, then you select the Penang address. And then date of contract execution, which is the date of your signing of your agreement. And then for D, you don't have to fill up. Unless you are overseas, if this is a document is executed overseas, then only you fill up D, or else you don't have to. Next. Okay, when you come to this page, Maklumat Am, which is pejabat system. So if you're in Selangor, then you will put Selangor address. And then tajuk document atau perjanjian, you just put letter of employment, letter of offer or for employment. And then perjanjian pekerjaan. Then principal or subsidiary, you have to select whether you are a principal office or subsidiary office. And then nombor adjudikasi. Then you have to simpan maklumat am. Once you have all this information that you have filled in, you have to simpan the maklumat am. Okay, then you go next process. Okay, for bahagian A is where maklumat pihak pertama. So pihak pertama will refer to pautan individu atau syarikat. So for this part, the first part is your company's details. Okay, and then for maklumat pihak kedua, that is for your employee details. So you follow the employment letter. And then number 3 is butiran peguam or agent. So if you're an agent acting on behalf of your company, then you need to check your information, everything is correctly. Okay, then once that is done, okay. So you see, when maklumat pihak pertama, so this one you will fill up all your company's particulars, the number, company nama, and then the type of business and so on. So if you have old registration, if you don't have old registration number, you just click the box tiada. And then the TIN number, which is your ET number. And then all the informations until the postcode and email address. Then you have the next step is to fill up your employee details, maklumat pihak kedua. So this one you refer back to your offer letter. Okay, the nationality of the employee, the TIN number, and then the address of the employee, and then the postcode and so on, the telephone and also the email. Then next, once you fill up all this, next. Okay. Okay. For lampiran, so here is where you will whatnot your employment contract. Okay, so you make sure that you have your employment contract in PDF copy ready to be uploaded. Once that is done, next step. Next is perakuan. So you have to check before you submit. This is the final stage before you submit the document. So you have to ensure that your name and your details, everything is correct. And for nombor rujukan, you just put blank, utusan also blank. And then you have to tick the box at the bottom to certify that whatever information that you have keyed in earlier is right, is correct, and is complete, and to the best of your knowledge. So you click on that. After that, you click simpan and hantar. So you will complete part 2, one step closer to your goal. So important employment letter submission rules. If signed and submitted within 30 days, then you proceed to payment, which is part 4 payment, which I will go through later. And then you skip part 3 for appeal. But if the contract is signed and submitted over 30 days, you need to stop. Do not make any payment. You have to go directly to part 3, which is your appeal rayuan page. But because by making payment, you agree to the imposed duty and penalty, then all payments are final. So no appeal and no refund. So you have to be ensure that the document that you uploaded, if it's within 30 days, then you can proceed straight for payment. If it's over 30 days, you must ensure that you submit for appeal first prior to payment. Next. Okay, part 3 is on appeal. Only applicable for contract exceed 30 days. Ready for the part 3 appeal? Here are the one main document you will need, which is your letter of appeal. Okay, that is a sample in the HR forum, which you can actually download and use it and change some information in there, or you can use your own. You can design one of your own. Next. Okay. So under laporan, you can use under Rayuan, you will select Rayuan. Okay, you go to Rayuan, and then you have to enter your nombor adjudikasi. Rayuan, nombor adjudikasi. So this one you refer back to the number that was given to you. The adjudication number is generated by the system once the stamping type is selected to process the stamp duty application. It serves as a reference for each submitted document and is also used for making stamp duty payments. Next. Here, this page, you have to maklumat rayuan. So jenis rayuan, you have to select rayuan penalty. Okay. And next. Okay. Then under here, nyatakan alasan, you can either copy whatever that you have prepared, your appeal letter, and then you put it here, or you can upload the whole appeal letter. Okay. Next. Okay, so for bilangan jenis document, so this is your lampiran, surat rayuan. So muat naik the surat, so letter of appeal. So you have it ready, the PDF copy, and you muat naik, or either you copy and paste to earlier just now the comment there where you can leave a comment for appeal. Then once you have done that, you click for preview. Make sure you preview first, right? And make sure that you upload the correct letter. If not, then you delete and then re-upload again. Okay, and then you have to click seterusnya. Okay, once that is done, so the next one is ulasan, akuan. So for akuan here, you see your name, your IC and everything. You so ensure that you please tick the box. This box is to ensure that whatever that you have submitted earlier is the truth, is correct, and is complete. Then only you tick this box. Okay, and then simpan and hantar. Once you hantar, there will be a box that shows you permohonan rayuan berjaya dihantar. Okay. Then you don't make payment, you wait first. Wait for LHDN to reply you. Once they reply that, there's a waiver, then only you go ahead and submit. Then you go ahead and process for payment. Next. Okay, once you have done that, you see, when LHDN reply, status will change to LHDN process rayuan penalty. So the tips, there's no defined lead time for penalty waiver, appeal process after submission. Therefore, it's advisable for you to check for the status frequently. You can proceed with payment once appeal has been approved. Okay. Upon receiving notification from LHDN, you can log in and proceed with payment. So below is just a sample email, how the appeal looks like. So when LHDN reply you and they already give waiver, then only you proceed for payment. Okay. Next. So next one, you go back to rayuan, penyertaman am, then permohonan penyertaman sedia untuk bayaran duty. Okay. Next step is the payment process. This is the last process. Okay. 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 So when you see the status has changed, sedia untuk bayaran duty, ready to make payment, that's when you can, this is where you will make payment already. So you see the notice taksiran, this is a sample letter. Then go next. Okay, so for table 1, there's 2 tables here. For table 1, payment, stamp duty paid within 30 days of signing date. So this one is, this is for contracts which is within 30 days. So you can go ahead and make payment. Okay, for table 2 is after successfully appeal for stamp duty waiver. This is for contract which is exceed the 30 days window. All right. Once you have successfully appealed, then you only click teruskan bayaran online. Then you see there is a, where I highlighted the penalty waiver, there is a minus 100 ringgit. So you only pay, instead of paying 110, you only pay 10 ringgit. Okay, next. Okay, for bayaran online, make payment via FPX. So these are the process, the steps you have to go through one by one. Next. Okay, once payment is done, right, then this is the last process where you will print out your stamp hasil. So when you print your stamp hasil, you have to ensure that anda hanya diberikan mencetak atau menyimpan sijil resit stamp sekali sahaja. Sila pastikan pencetak dalam keadaan bersedia. Jika tidak muat turun dan cetak, anda dinasihatkan agar tidak menekan butang cancel semasa proses dilaksanakan. So you have to ensure that when you download this particular stamp or you want to print, you make to ensure that your printer is working or your printer is on. Okay, and when you download, also make sure that you don't cancel the button, because once you cancel, you cannot save the situation anymore, because you can only download this particular stamp only once. You cannot redo again. So you have to be very careful. Before you download, you have to ensure that everything is working, then only you download. I would advise you to download the TIFF file, save it first, then you can print it later. Okay, next. So the stamping process is complete. So you can unlock your next step. So ensure the stamp duty compliance within 30 days for the rest of your employment contract. I'll pass it back to Mr. Arul.
Okay, so okay, so thanks a lot, Rachel, for the very detailed explanation. Okay, now we have done. It's already 4:30. We're supposed to end at 4:30, but we would like to pick up a few questions. We'd like to pick up a few questions. From your FAQ. But maybe I'll pass back to Luis. Is there something that you want to?
Okay.
You want to just re-highlight any portions?
Can. Okay. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Arul. I made one mistake earlier when I was talking. Is that I asked, is there any question? Please ask, and we will answer it. Not knowing that there's about 1,000 plus questions already in the comments box. I will try to. I mean, some of the questions are repetitive. I will try to answer these questions at one go. Okay. Number one, I want to highlight is the Section 41 of the Stamp Act. Okay, Section 41 says that all instruments chargeable with duty and executed by any person in Malaysia shall be stamped before or at the time of execution. Okay, so it means that once the contract has been executed meaning signed, it must be stamped. Okay, it must be stamped. Just that section 47 allows you to say that if you signed but you have not stamped it yet, you can do so within 1 month. Okay, you can do so within 1 month. And 47A says that if you don't do so within 1 month, then you're subject to the penalty, which we explained earlier. Okay, so it's not when it's dated, it's not when how you put the date, you put the date later. It's not. It's when it is executed, you must stamp it. And if you don't stamp it immediately, you must stamp it within 1 month. After that, you are subject to the late stamping penalty. That's one section I want to highlight, section 47, 41 and section 47. Okay, for those who are asking, can we date it later? Can we date it another time? The answer is no, that's not what you're supposed to do. Another section I want to highlight is section 61 of the Stamp Act, which says this: any person who with intent to evade the payment of duty executes any instrument which all the facts and circumstances are not truly and fully set forth as required by section 5, okay, shall be liable to a fine not exceeding 2,500 ringgit. So meaning if you, for the purposes of evading paying the stamp duty, you put in something in the instrument which is not true, if you got found out, you are also possible to liable for a fine up to 2,500 ringgit. So if you like to manipulate your contract, write something that is not true just to not pay the stamp duty, that is potentially another offense that you're looking at. Okay, now, so all those creative ideas that you may have, please think twice before you do it. LHDN is also very intelligent and very experienced in these kind of things. Section 63, 1B, I also want to highlight is this. Any person who, having drawn, made, executed, or signed otherwise and a witness any instrument that is chargeable with duty, okay, but you fail to procure the stamping within the time, this is what I highlighted just now, section 63, then you're looking at a fine not exceeding 1,500 ringgit. So if you're not clear just now, what I said is that if you stamp late, okay, you are subject to the late stamping fee, that's for sure. But if you are caught not stamping, okay, or you are caught stamping late, that is a separate offense on its own. First, you stamp it late, okay, fine, you need to pay the 100 ringgit. But the fact that you fail to stamp it within the correct time, that is an offense also. Okay, so there is another penalty that you're looking at, which is up to 1,500 ringgit. So put it very simply, now the LHDN has given relief, has given the exemption, ask you, if you signed it, all the contracts before 2025, you don't need to stamp it, fine, leave it aside. Those contracts that you signed within in this year, even if it's already past the 1 month, get it stamped now, we don't incur any penalty. And Malaysia has gone through with you the process to how not to incur any penalty. Okay, get it sorted, and then next year start going back to the correct process. Don't try to run around circles around the law. Otherwise, you'll just end up with more problems. Okay, and lastly, I want to highlight is this, which is the definition of agreement under the first schedule. So first schedule, it says, first schedule states out what are the agreements that has to be stamped. So what we are looking at is the number 4, is agreement or memorandum of agreement made underhand only and not otherwise specially charged with any duty, whether the same is only evidence of a contract on the obligation on the parties from its being a written instrument. Okay, so it's an agreement signed underhand. Okay, for service or personal employment where the wages do not exceed 300 ringgit per month, and any agreement between the masters and mariners of any vessel or boat voyages. So as long as it's an agreement, it is signed underhand, it is an evidence of an obligation between two parties, then it falls under number 4 and you have to get it stamped. So for those asking about mutual separation, contract for service, contract of service, part-time contract, is it an agreement signed underhand that captures the obligation of both parties? If the answer is yes, you have to get it stamped. Okay. Now, if it's a contract, within the contract, it says you're subject to probation. Now, after 3 months later, we give a confirmation of probation. It is already in the original contract. It's just a process in the contract, probation within the contract. It's not a new contract. These kind of circumstances, or transfer within the departments, transfer within divisions, these are already part of the employment contract. These are not new contracts. So these are not new agreements. Those you don't get it stamped. Okay, this generally I think answer quite a lot of questions in the comment section already. And like I always say, it's all captured in the law. Like Aru emphasized, if you just ask piecemeal one question, there's not going to be a hotline where you can just ask for answers. You need to understand the principles and the laws. Then you use your own common sense and interpret whether these laws apply to your situation. Then you can make the correct decision. Okay, that's what I say. Yeah.
Thanks, Luis.
Yeah.
There's another very interesting question by Sharon. I think Sharon has got foreign workers, and foreign workers, we renew the contract every year. Now, before I answer this question, those of you all, if you have foreign workers, right, the first contract is typically 2 years. And after the 2 years expire, you are supposed to renew the contract every year. Now, if you don't renew the contract every year, right, JTK may come after you, because every employee, whether they are local or foreign, they must have always a valid contract. An employee must always have a valid contract. So the foreign worker, I know most companies, they have this idea. Now, foreign workers, we renew the work permit. Now, work permit is not employment contract. A work permit is a work permit. That is for the purpose of immigration. But as far as employment is concerned, they must have an active contract. So you're supposed to renew the foreign workers contract every year. Otherwise, again, fine 50,000 by the Labour Act. Now, so if you have a foreign worker and you renew the contract 1 year, that is considered a new contract, right? That is valid at that time. You got to get it stamped. So if you renew again, you got to get it stamped. So if you're going to hire a foreign worker and keep them for 10 years, right? There are 9 times you got to stamp the contract. The first 2 years, 1 stamp. 3rd year, 1 stamp. 4th year, 1 stamp. 5th year, 1 stamp. And you keep on doing it until this foreign worker leaves the company, right? But let me give you, Sharon, this is a bonus tip for you. I'm going to save you time and save all the trees that you're chopping off every year. What you should do is, when the first contract expire, the first 2-year contract expire, and this is what I've done, when we had 5,000 foreign workers, I'm not like you renewing the contract every year, etc. You give one addendum to that contract, saying that your contract is auto-renewal or auto-renewed up to 10 years. 1 stamp, done. So no more renewal. Because remember, foreign workers, if we can keep them for 100 years, we want to keep them for 100 years, right? Because foreign workers are so expensive commodity, we want to keep them. So what you can do is, when the first 2-year contract expire, you give them an addendum. You state that this contract is auto renewed up to 10 years, or it's an open-ended contract up to 10 years, right? So by doing so, you can avoid the yearly stamping, right? So that's one tip for Sharon. Okay, let me just pick up maybe 1 or 2 more questions. The stamp receipt, should we need to keep hard copy or in the system? Luis?
Okay, I want to say this, that digital stamping is specifically provided in the Act itself. So soft copy stamping is all fine.
Okay, but again, I would like to say this. It is always, I mean, what happens if your PC goes kaput? What happens if your server goes kaput? So always take a precautionary measure, right? If it's just going to cost you extra 1 minute, extra 1 piece of paper, 1 print, few minutes, I would rather do it, because you do not want to be in a situation one day an audit takes place and suddenly you realize, your soft copy, your system is corrupted, right? So always take a precautionary approach, so that you can prove, if you're audited, okay, these are all the evidences. Okay.
Just to pick up on that, one lesson that you must take away from today's session is, please don't lose the big picture. Please don't focus so much on the minute things until you lose the bigger issue. For example, just to avoid the 10 ringgit stamping fee, you rather not have an employment contract. But then what's going to govern your relationship with the employee? What if this goes to an industrial court matter or the JTK matter? You have no contract to show, just because you want to save the 10 ringgit. So please, yes, it's a hassle. Yes, it's an additional cost, but you always must balance between the more important, the higher stake consequences with having to pay this 10 ringgit.
Okay, so I'm not sure there's any other questions. If you have any important questions, you can type it now, because it's going to be so difficult to scroll upwards But if you have, please do. But while you're typing out, just want to share with you this message. Those of you all, if you're in HR, you want to get yourself HR certified, you want to climb the ladder, you want to build your competency, etc. HR Forum offers 10 certification programs. A certified business partner, certified IR practitioner, certified com and ben. I think there's very few places in the market, who runs a com and ben, salary structure, job grading, certified HR analytics, certified strategic HR manager, certified payroll professional. We cover payroll tax. So these are all the programs that we have. And I know some of you all were offended just now, hey, how come this speaker, etc. Now that's me, right? That's me. And not that I want to belittle you guys, etc. But sometimes hard lessons helps us to open up our minds, right? One of my ex-colleague from Harta Lega, she's there, and she said, "You're as tough as usual." Okay, now I run this masterclass program. We run this masterclass program. It covers and all the main aspects of Employment Act and how you can work smart, right? Just now I mentioned a lot of organizations, they blindly extend probation. They don't realize that you don't need to extend probation for too long. 3 months, 4 months, that's it, finish, right? How do you remove an employee safely? How do you manage employees who are, problematic? How do you, for some of you all, when we talk about disciplinary matter, issue show cause letter, reply letter, etc., 1-2 weeks. I do it in half an hour, right? Why you waste your time, right? So all these are covered in the masterclass. So we have got 4 editions. Kuching, we're going to cover the Sarawak Labour Ordinance, the amendments. We'll be in Penang, in PJ, in our academy as well as online. So those of you all, if you really need a shake-up, right? I dare those people who says speaker is tough, speaker macam mana speaker boleh, come to the masterclass and I'll tell you why and what you're missing, right? So those of you all, if you really want to be a much better HR practitioner, you want to learn about the big picture, you want to know how to save bigger money and not all this stamping, boss, I jimat RM10. Ayah, RM10 tak banyak lah. You want to save, you save thousands. If you're in sales, you want to bring in sales, you bring in thousands of sales, not RM200 worth of sales, right? Big picture, right? All these are covered. And how do you, what are the amendment to the law? How do you manage your processes faster? How do you manage employees with medical conditions? How do you manage terminations? What are the 4 scientific approach when managing probationers? So all these are covered in the masterclass. It's an intense 2 days masterclass. And we also have a training that is coming up next month on employment contracts. We will cover a bit of stamping matter here as well. So if you're interested, all these are HRD Corp claimable. It is in our academy in PJ. So do join us if you can. Okay.
Just on this,
go ahead. Yep.
Just on this, since I'm here and I go to the industrial court and the labor court quite a lot, I will tell you that a lot of industrial problems, court cases arise from a lack of competency in the HR personnel. They don't know how to do a proper misconduct investigation. They don't know how to properly manage offboarding of employees, performance improvement. That's why the case ends up in the industrial court. And for me, if I represent the employee, I will have a happy day in court when I deal with the opposite side and the HR. It's totally clueless about the law and what he or she is doing. So what you do as HR have a very big consequence on your company. That's why Aru is tough. That's why he encouraged you all to come to these classes, because you have to go through the training, you have to become better, to do better for your company.
You know what? The joke out there, the training costs about, like this class costs about 3,002. They want to save 3,002. But they don't mind paying in the court.
Exactly.
24 months salary. Itu tak apa. 3,000 kita kena jimat. So this what we call as penny wise, pound foolish. We save 3,000, but we expose the company to hundreds of thousands of ringgit. When we look at all the case award, 2 million, 1.5 million, 800,000. Like just a recent case 2 days ago, I think there was a case in Australia. I think $1 million plus, right? So don't try to save small money, right? Learn up, get yourself competent. Some of you all may have learned through trial error, learn here, learn there, etc. Good to come and learn the best practices, how to do things right. Okay, I think we will call it a day here. But before you go, number one, these slides that we have shared, we're going to load it up in Facebook in a very short while. You can download from Facebook. And the recording is also recorded in Facebook. You can go and review and watch again when you're free. if you want to learn the steps, like what Rachel has shared. So all these are available. A sample offer letter is also available in Facebook. When you get these slides, there is also 1 or 2 links. If you want to download the Stamp Act, there's a link. You can also download the Stamp Act and many others. So for those of you all, if you have any technical questions, bulk payment, cannot, etc., please ask in the forum. We have got a lot of members who are ready to help you, to guide you, and how, whether cannot, what this, what that. So those of you all, if you are new to the new to HR forum, we have a Facebook community. My colleague has shared the link, or if you're watching this, you're already in Facebook community. But anyway, there's tons of documents, tons of templates, tons of resources, which you'll find useful. So people like Luis, he's a lawyer. He also shares a lot of write-ups, based on his experience in the industrial court, what companies have done wrong, etc. So when we read and learn, it makes us a better person, right? How do we avoid going to court? How do we avoid paying? So read some of Luis's article. It's quite nice, quite interesting, because he writes based on his experience, managing cases in the industrial court. So thanks a lot. And I would like to thank Luis once more, for taking his time off from his busy day. We're not paying him anything. We just gave him lunch just now. So we're not paying anything. So thanks to Luis, Rachel, Sophia. She's not with us today, but Sophia Ten has been super helpful in building up the processes with Rachel. So I would like to thank Luis, Rachel, and Sophia for the effort. And we hope that this session has been, at least useful in some ways to some of you all.
And just one thing, I think somebody has been asking quite a few times on NDAs. In my reading, yes, NDA should be stamped. So I hope that answers your question. And like Aru said again, I also thank Aru and Malaysia Forum for having me. I think my number is in the slides. So if you all still really need some clarification, you can always WhatsApp me. Just reach out to me directly.
Okay, so I think that's all for today. And you will be able to download these slides in a very short while from our Facebook page. You'll be able to download in a short while. And if you have any further questions, please ask in the group. There are a lot of members who are helpful based on their experience, how to go about it and so on. That will speed up your process, speed up your your task to get all your contracts stamped. So thanks a lot, and we'll see you in our next webinar series. See you then.